my name is Paul Tilstone from Festive Road, and today I'm in conversation with my business partner Caroline Strachan and roader Louise Kilgannon. Hello Louise and Caroline, welcome. I think we'd like to start off the conversation just by kind of understanding how the permissible travel framework, which we produced in 2020, and the purposeful travel model are linked. Caroline, maybe if you could kick us off.
Sure. So permissible travel framework was a direct reaction to our client need at the start of COVID. But then we realised there was a wider industry need of how to manage travel during the pandemic, hence why we gifted it to the industry. But we realised in doing that over last year that we were at this really unique moment in time where travel managers and in fact actually travellers would need to get to the true value of travel versus virtual to justify the return to travel. So in short, the purposeful travel model is a way of getting to the why versus just the current what and how of managed travel.
If I can jump in, Paul, if I think back to my time as a travel buyer across a variety of organisations, I think how I would be feeling right now, I'd be thinking, thank goodness we've got through that really, really difficult period, but what on earth is going to happen next? And if anybody sat there thinking or waiting for something to happen, waiting for leadership to tell them what happens next in travel, the model that we've created is designed really to allow you to take a bit of control back and work through all of the important questions, but develop an idea of how you move forward to the next step. So rather than waiting for something to happen to you, taking control and presenting something to your executive leadership.
So it's about being proactive, essentially, in this moment in time. How, Caroline, maybe you can answer, how did the principle of the purposeful travel model come about?
As Louise was just alluded to, many of us at Festive Road are former travel managers, and we've all been in that painful situation of managing a temporary travel ban and handling the CFO, for instance, or the finance director on how to control the return to travel when it comes. So imagine that discussion going on in every company around the world, grappling with how to manage the floodgates when they reopen. Overlay that this unique time when we've got this dispersed workforce or a changed place of work and the sustainability drive. What does that mean next? Is it going to be virtual for all interactions? Is it going to be back to travel for all different types of interactions? Or is it going to be something in between? So we knew companies would need help. We had this initial concept and idea, but we got 10 big thinking travel managers together at a 2-day event. But remember what those were, at a time when we actually could get together in person. And we called it Macroscope Live. And our idea there was to really just test this concept and then help build the content with the idea that we would then gift it back to the industry.
So I remember the Macroscope Live event really vividly because to me, it almost felt like the first meeting I'd ever been to in my career. It felt that fresh after so long. Maybe it's just worth explaining, like, what do we mean by the term macroscope?
So macroscope is quite simply the opposite to microscope. So we all know a microscope, you look at something in a lot of detail. That's really what we do with travel management today. It's very detailed, very operational, very tactical. Our thought process with macroscope is to blow it up and go back to thinking big about managed travel.
Okay, great. Now, we gifted the permissible travel framework to the industry because it was absolutely the right thing to do at a time when people were in critical need of some guidance on how to create that pathway for a return back to travel. But we're a consultancy company, and consultancy companies build models and then they sell access to those models. So why are we gifting the purposeful travel model to the industry?
Well, do you know, I think when we talk about this across Festive Road, we all really passionately believe that we're in this once in a century time, right? None of us have ever experienced something like this before. So we've got this really unique opportunity to elevate the need to travel as a valuable enabler to business rather than just this cost line. So as a mission-led consultancy, it's in our DNA to gift the model to anyone, a buyer or a supplier, to really help them think through this next stage for their company, not just for their travel program, for their company's success.
So, Louise, after the Macroscope Live event, we asked you to come in as a fresh pair of eyes to start building out the model. So what have you been up to over the last couple of months?
So I took all of the information from Macroscope Live, so both the external stimulus that we asked attendees to review beforehand, and then the input from the people who were there on the day. So all of that great thinking, the big thinking that happens when you're outside of your normal environment. And based on that, I started to build out a model that was more practical, more tangible, that travel buyers could actually use to go through on a step-by-step basis to decide how travel looks for their organization moving forward. Once I had that model, I then went out to a group of trusted travel buyers to ask them, is this something that you could actually use? Is it a practical tool that you can take your organization through? And does it help you? Because if not, what's the point? Does it help you to actually look at the return to travel and decide how that's going to look for your organization? The landing point was a really practical model that travel buyers can take out to their leadership and can adapt for use within their organization. And I think that that's really important, that it is practical. And one of the principles that we looked at was the defining of different travel types. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the next step. But that might not look the same for all organizations. So the language that we used, organization, customer, and people, that might not quite fit into your company lexicon. If it doesn't, there's a really easy way that you can just change it up, make it feel very natural for your company, your organization, and use it.
So that's some of the initial feedback we've had from the travel managers, is that whilst the application of the model is going to be the same, is considering the purpose for trips, actually the language that people use for different types of travel may vary. Have we had any other feedback from travel managers? Caroline, I know you've been talking to people as well.
Yeah, one of the original big thinker travel managers actually that came to Macroscope Live is well advanced with this journey and has done a brilliant job of engaging the executives. And in her organisation, they have a reimagining the workplace strategy. And so she's aligned all of the Macroscope language into her internal language, and now it really makes sense. So she's personalised it into that organisation, which is why we've been so careful to keep really generic standard language so that you can apply it into your own company.
Okay, I think it's also, I'll just reference that the external stimulus that Louise was talking about a second ago was actually a bunch of recorded interviews that we did with stakeholders outside of the sector or loosely connected on the edge of the sector. And the stimulus summarizes the output from those videos. Louise did that for us. That's fantastic. And that's on the Festive Road website. Louise, the model itself, what does the user end up with? What's it designed ultimately to provide to the travel manager and the company that goes through the process?
Okay, so from the buyer point of view, there's three things really it's designed to achieve. First of all, we know that there's been this huge shift in the way that people think about the workplace in general and travel as part of that. So first of all, we want to challenge your thinking. And there's a combination of ways to do that. Firstly, with the external stimulus, as you said, everybody who took part offered their views, but they weren't necessarily the typical views that we hear in a travel forum. So that will challenge your thinking. But secondly, we've provided you with a list of questions to really challenge yourself and work out, are you still in the old way of thinking, or are you in the new way of thinking? So ready to look at travel for the future of your organization. Secondly, we take you through an exercise which we call Zoom to in the room. The idea is that this will help you establish which types of travel are really valuable to your organization and will be valuable moving forward. We came up with almost 30 subtypes of travel under the headings of organization, customer, and people. As we said, you may want to use slightly different language there, but that shouldn't change the exercise fundamentally. we actually ask you, and this could be a challenge, we ask you to imagine that all travel in the future will default to virtual. So there will be no travel. That way you then build up your program again, justifying each type of travel. And the idea is that you don't do this sat in a room on your own. It's a really fantastic way to engage your stakeholders, to engage your travelers, and to be able to present that internal view of travel back to your organization. The end result is an executive summary made up of all of those different component parts, and that can be used to present to your senior leadership. And it really demonstrates strategic thinking. Going back to my original point, it positions you as a strategic leader, keeps that conversation open, and also make sure that you are part of the conversation going forward. So you're not sat there waiting to be told what travel will mean to your organization. You will actually be part of that. But I also wanted just to highlight that for suppliers, this is also a really valuable tool for them. What it does is gives you insight into what your clients might be concerned about, might be thinking through at this point in time, this really unique point in time. So you might want to use it as a tool to take to senior leadership within your client organizations to help them talk through the return to travel, but not in a commercial way, in a very strategic way. It might be a great tool to run a workshop for some of your clients.
A great point, Louise. It's a really nice way of re-engaging without being salesy. I've found this in the industry. It's been published by this independent third party. Can I help you review it and talk you through it? We got really good feedback from the TMC community with permissible travel. A number of them took their customers through that as a way of keeping engaged with them during the pandemic. This is now a more forward-looking view. So really encourage the suppliers to look at it too.
I think what's nice as well is it sort of challenges that long-held view that there are two types of travel, external versus internal. It's much more nuanced than that. So the supplier understanding of this is going to help them to right-size what the market's going to look like and what types of travel are going to be around for them to service in the future. So it's a really good point, ladies. Thank you. So what comes next?
So this is the launch, and then you're going to, I think, hear about the purposeful travel model in lots of different places. So we've already been booked for a number of industry events to share the information, for some client events for us to share for them as well. You'll see blogs from us. You'll see online interviews with travel managers who have been using the tool to share best practice. But the key is really hearing from people and sharing. If you followed Permissible Travel last year, you'll have seen that we did 10 versions and we kept listening and kept sharing. I can't promise 10 versions of Purposeful Travel because we may not need that, but we'll continually listen and adjust as we go.
Your work's not done yet then, Louise?
No, absolutely not. It's an iterative process, like Caroline said. So, you know, the permissible travel framework, there were 10 versions because it was such a crazy time, and there were adjustments being made week on week as we got feedback, as we learned more from both the buyer and the supplier community. I don't think this will require so many versions, but what we do want, we know it's not a finished version right now because there's still a lot of unknowns in the future. So what we want is for people to just try this, test it with your senior leadership, test it with your travelers, your stakeholders, and your clients if you're a supplier, and then let us know if it works. Let us know if there's anything that we've missed, anything that we've got wrong. And, you know, we commit to continually improving the model.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for giving us an insight and overview of the Purposeful Travel model. For those of you watching, you can download the model just by going to festive-road.com. It's for unlimited downloads. We hope you get lots of use out of it. And like Louise and Caroline said, please provide us with your feedback. We listen very hard and we'll make all the adjustments necessary to fine-tune the model for future use. Look out also for video interviews we'll be undertaking with travel buyers within the industry who have taken a purposeful travel and meetings management approach and how they've applied that to their organizations. And thank you for joining us today and for watching this In Conversation With program.